Hey, we're going to take a look at how to manually add multiple data sets to a scatter plot in OpenOffice. This is the latest version of OpenOffice Calc. Um, as compared to Excel, I think it's actually marginally easier to do it in OpenOffice because of the nice convenient dialog boxes they'll give you. So here's my data. Here's all my different positions. Here are all different times for all sorts of different motions. What I want to do is create a single position time graph with all these data sets so I can compare how the different trend lines look, draw some conclusions about the relationship between velocity, position, time, and slope. So let's do that. I'm going to highlight all my data, and there's a little chart button right up here. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it's going to try and create a chart for me, and here's a little dialog box. This dialog box is going to allow me to manually select my data. So I'm going to choose chart type XY scatter like that. Data range, don't really need to worry about that right now. Since I arranged it in columns already, first row is label, I'm good to go. Data series, however, I am going to have to make some changes. It should already have automatically selected the different names for my columns. But I will have to go in and manually change my X and Y values because for a position time graph, I want position on my Y and time on my X. And by default, it kind of does that backwards. So I'm going to click on Run. I'm going to manually select my X values by hitting this button right here, Select Data Range. And I want those to be my X. And for Y values, I want these to be my Y. And I'm just going to rinse and repeat that for each of these. Jog X values, select my times, and then select my positions for my Y. For walk, X values, time, Y values, position. Zombie shuffle, X values, times, Y values, positions. Click and drag to select all that data. Speed up is going to be kind of an interesting data set. My X values are my times again, and my Y values are my positions again. Some people, some lab groups took this data, some groups didn't. It's kind of the bonus data set. We would generally expect if you're moving at a constant velocity for things to be linear. If you're changing velocity like this speed up set, it's not going to be linear. So once I'm done selecting all my data, I'm going to continue on to chart elements where I can add my title. My x-axis is time measured in seconds. My y-axis is my position measured in meters. My title is position versus time. I'm going to display grids on both just because I feel like it. And then you're done putting different data sets onto this graph. Now we want to look at some trend lines. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Let's look at some trend lines. This is going to get awful busy awful fast. So let's go to my Run, right click. When you right click, you get the option to insert a trend line. I want it to be linear, and I do want to see the equation. If you get something like this where like there's a y-intercept that's like ridiculously tiny, in this case it's 1.77 times 10 to the negative 15, you can kind of just ignore that. That's as close to zero as it gets. The algorithm for finding the trend line, it can be a little imperfect. This is artificial data. This is fake data that I constructed that should be perfect. Here we go. f of x equals 4x. I constructed the jog data to do exactly that. Let's go to the walk data. Whoops, I forgot to add. If you forget to add the equation, you can always go back, right click on the trend line and format the trend line and say show equation. And there's that equation. And here is the final linear set, the zombie shuffle. Again, we've got that big, long, ridiculous y-intercept. If it's ridiculously tiny like that, whoops. If it's ridiculously tiny like that, you can go in, format the trend line. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Excel has the option to force the intercept to 0. OpenOffice does not, so you're just kind of stuck with that big, long, ugly y-intercept that really means nothing. Here's a data set that we haven't worked with yet. This is the speed up data set. When I insert a trend line, you'll notice a linear trend line doesn't fit that data very well. Logarithmic certainly doesn't. Exponential, power. Exponential fits it pretty well. Power, let's find out. Format trend line, power. Power doesn't fit it as well, so it looks like exponential fits it pretty well. In reality, it's not an exponential trend. In reality, it's a parabola. It's a second order. It's a second order equation. We haven't encountered this type of data set yet, but we will in class. So I would just fit to the best possible line. And really what's interesting for the purposes of this lab is that it's not linear. So that's how to insert multiple data sets into OpenOffice, put them onto a scatter plot, manually select the x and y values, and throw some nice looking linear trend lines. Please make sure when you submit these labs to attach this original file. It will allow me to check to make sure everything looks the way it's kind of supposed to look. And it will let me make sure that all your conclusions match the data that you found. All right, thanks. Good luck.